Imagine buying your dream $2 million oceanfront villa to finally enjoy peace after a lifetime of hard work, only for your arrogant son-in-law to barge in with 15 guests, claiming your home as his personal resort. But this time, you don't back down. You fight back and win. The sea breeze whispered through the open glass doors of my new villa, the kind of place you dream about for a lifetime. After 40 years of engineering work, grueling deadlines, 3 a.m., troubleshooting calls, and a pension fund built on sacrifice, I had finally arrived. My $2 million oceanfront villa wasn't just a home. It was a reward. White stone floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a private beach. Everything was perfect. I was halfway through unpacking my wine glasses when my phone rang. Brian, my late daughter Emily's husband, a man who'd drained more from me financially and emotionally than the IRS ever could. I hesitated, hoping it was a courtesy call. Maybe even a "congrats on the house, Richard." But no. The moment I picked up, I heard it. The voice of entitlement. "Hey, old man, we're on our way, 15 of us. Be ready. Beds, towels, slippers, food. We'll be there in 40 minutes. No, please. No, is this a good time? Just commands." I thought he was joking. I let out a short laugh. "Brian, the house isn't even fully unpacked. I've still got moving boxes everywhere. It's not ready for guests." His reply came like a punch. "Don't care. You've got space, right? Money too. And you're retired. What else are you doing?" The audacity made my ears ring. I had just spent decades earning this peace, and within days of moving in, this man wanted to turn it into a circus. I tried reasoning again. 3 weeks is a long time for 15 people to just show up. I need time. He chuckled. "Already told the kids about Uncle Richard's beach mansion. They're excited. You wouldn't want to disappoint them, would you?" Uncle Richard. Not Grandpa, not even Mr. Clark. Uncle, like I was a distant cousin on standby for their leisure. The insult stung more than it should have. "We'll take the master bedroom. Jessica wants the ocean view for her yoga reels. You'll sleep wherever. Cool?" I stood in my silent kitchen, stunned. Through the windows, waves lapped at the shore. I'd earned this view, this stillness. But Brian was tearing through it like a tornado of entitlement. The line went dead. They were coming whether I liked it or not. Exactly 37 minutes later, the sound of car engines echoed up my private road. I walked to the front window and watched in disbelief. 4 vehicles packed with coolers, beach toys, kids, and adults I didn't even recognize. One SUV pulled up first. Brian's. He stepped out like he was inspecting his latest investment property, not visiting someone else's home. Jessica was next, blonde, glued to her phone, already filming. "Oh my God, this place is insane." "You guys, we're here," she shouted to her followers. I opened the door before they could ring the bell, not out of hospitality, but to try and salvage some control. "What's up, old man?" Brian grinned and pushed past me like he owned the place. "Where's the hot tub? The master's down this hallway, right?" I tried to block his path. "Brian, we need to talk." But it was too late. People poured into my foyer like a crowd storming a stage. Wet sandals slapped my imported marble. Someone opened a beer. Kids darted toward the pool, leaving soggy footprints. Jessica live-streamed the kitchen tour like she was reviewing a luxury Airbnb. A couple of strangers were already discussing who would sleep where, without looking at me once. I raised my voice over the chaos. "Excuse me, everyone, this isn't okay." But no one listened. I was a ghost in my own home. Brian reappeared, tossing a duffel bag onto the guest bed. "We'll talk later, Richard. Let's just get everyone settled in." He said it like he was doing me a favor. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a visit. This was a takeover. And I had 15 problems standing between me and the peace I'd spent 40 years earning. As chaos swirled through my once serene villa, I escaped to the only room that hadn't been invaded yet, my study. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, listening to the muffled laughter and thumping music outside. The smell of beer and sunscreen wafted in from the hallway. I looked out the window at the Pacific, but all I saw was a lifetime of quiet sacrifices crashing like waves against a cliff of entitlement. I picked up the photo of Emily from my desk. My daughter, my light. Her smile in that picture was as warm as I remembered. Gone 3 years now, taken by cancer. Her loss carved a hole in me that still hadn't healed. But Brian had used that hole to wedge himself into every aspect of my life and my wallet. It started small. 6 months after their wedding, his first startup failed. He called me late at night, frantic. "Richard, I just need something to float us for a couple of months." I wired him $18,000 the next day. "You're so generous, Dad," Emily whispered during dinner that week. "Brian appreciates everything, even if he doesn't say it." But he didn't say it. Not then, not ever. Then came his MBA. He said it was the only way to provide a future for Emily and whatever kids they might have. Next, the down payment on their house. His credit was garbage. I co-signed and wired $60,000. I told myself I was investing in my daughter's stability. Then Emily got sick. Those bills were real. $85,000 in medical costs, chemotherapy, specialists, hospital stays. I gave every cent willingly. I would have given more if it meant one more birthday with her, one more morning with her laughter in my kitchen. But even then, Brian found a way to make it about himself, complaining about how hard it was to keep a job while dealing with stress, telling people at her funeral how relieved he was that at least the debt died with her. I stood in that study and stared at my filing cabinet. I had documents going back a decade, bank transfers, check stubs, loan wires, even the damn tuition receipts. I'd kept it all. At first for tax purposes. Later because I started to sense a pattern. Car repairs, credit card bailouts, emergency dentist bills, property taxes, a ring upgrade when Jessica came into the picture. Every request came with a story, a guilt trip, or a subtle reminder that I was family. And this was what family did. By the time I stopped keeping a running total in my head, I'd given over $290,000. I had built other people's lives while mine sat on hold. My own dream house? Delayed for years. I'd rented cheap places and driven the same sedan for a decade so I could keep saying yes when Brian called. Because Emily asked me to. Because I believed being a good father meant always helping. But Emily was gone, and Brian hadn't slowed down. If anything, he'd gotten bolder. The calls became less like requests and more like instructions. The tone shifted. It wasn't, "Can you help?" anymore. It was, "We need this. You'll take care of it, right?" And now here he was, taking over the home I'd finally bought for myself, acting like he'd earned it, like it was his reward for surviving Emily's death. Bringing strangers, using my bedroom, live streaming from my kitchen. The silence in the study felt sacred. My hands trembled slightly as I returned the photo to the desk. I wasn't angry yet, not fully. I was tired, worn down from years of swallowing resentment, from convincing myself that patience would be rewarded. But the truth was simpler and crueler. I had taught Brian that my boundaries didn't matter, and now he was taking full advantage, but not for much longer. When I stepped back into the hallway, it wasn't a house anymore. It was a theme park, a free-for-all. Jessica had turned my chef's kitchen into a backdrop for her influencer lifestyle. She was live streaming her beach getaway, twirling in front of my 6-burner range like it was a red carpet. "Father-in-law's place is straight out of a magazine," she gushed, smiling for the camera. So blessed. She didn't even notice me standing there. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. In the living room, my Italian leather sofa had been dragged into a corner. "Better for the open layout," someone explained when I stared at it in disbelief. Beer cans littered the coffee table. Flip-flops and beach towels decorated the floor like careless confetti. Kids I hadn't known were coming ran dripping from the pool through my hallway. Someone cranked music from my sound system, music I didn't even recognize. My careful design choices, my peace, my space. It was all dissolving in the noise. I made my way toward the bedroom wing where Brian's voice echoed off the walls like a tour guide. "This one's perfect for us," he said, pushing open the master suite door. "Jessica will love the view. She's already planning yoga content from the balcony. I stepped in behind him. That room's off limits, Brian. He didn't even turn around. Don't be selfish. We drove hours. Jess needs the lighting in here. I blocked the doorway. This is my bedroom, my personal space. You don't get to just assign it to yourselves. That got his attention. He turned, smirking. Come on, Richard. You've got the whole house. You're alone. Why do you need the biggest room? Because it was mine. I had dreamed of that room for decades. A king-sized bed facing the ocean. A private balcony with teak furniture. A soaking tub I had carefully chosen from a catalog after months of research. It wasn't just a bedroom, it was a symbol of arrival, of reward, of peace. But to Brian and Jessica, it was just content creation material. Jessica walked in, already setting her suitcase on the bed. Rick, honey, let's not make a scene. We're family. We'll only be here a few weeks. She smiled like that was a compromise. I snapped. No, everyone needs to get out of my bedroom right now. The room fell quiet for the first time all day. Jessica blinked like I'd slapped her. Rick, are you okay? Brian's tone turned sharp. Don't make this weird, man. We're just trying to have a good time. But it was already weird. This whole situation was surreal. Strangers redecorating my home, streaming their lives to followers, calling me selfish for wanting basic respect. You've all overstayed your welcome, I said, louder this time. This is not a rental. This is my home. Behind me, I could hear murmurs from the others. Someone turned the music down. Eyes were starting to turn in my direction. Jessica sighed dramatically. Can we just talk about this like adults? Adults ask before they move in, I said. Brian rolled his eyes. You're being dramatic. This was supposed to be a family trip. No, I replied. This was supposed to be the beginning of my peace, and you stole it. I turned and walked out before I said something worse. The music was back on by the time I reached the kitchen, but softer now. The vibe had shifted. People were starting to sense that their free vacation might be in jeopardy. I looked at the phone on the counter, then out at the waves crashing beyond the pool. I'd had enough. Back in my study, the door clicked shut behind me like a sanctuary seal. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury so long denied it felt foreign. The chaos outside, the laughter, the crashing footsteps, the audacity, made the silence in this room all the more sacred. I picked up my phone. No more reasoning, no more guilt, no more pretending that being family meant tolerating abuse. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Richard Clark. I'm the legal homeowner of this property. There are multiple people in my house who refuse to leave after I told them to. I am not in immediate danger, but I do need police assistance to remove them. Understood, sir. Can you confirm your address? I gave the details, steady and calm. The years of engineering work, of problem-solving under pressure, kicked in like muscle memory. Logic, facts, process. Officers are on their way. Estimated arrival, 15 to 20 minutes. Please remain in a secure location. I'm in my study, door locked. Outside, I heard the murmur of voices. Word had spread. Maybe someone overheard me on the phone. Maybe it was the sudden quiet from my end of the house. Whatever it was, the mood had shifted again. Knocking started. Tentative at first. Richard? Brian's voice, artificially calm. Can we talk? I didn't answer. More knocking. Louder now. Jessica's voice joined in. Syrupy sweet. Daddy Rick, please don't be upset. We just wanted to spend time with you. They were cycling through all the manipulation stages. Denial, charm, guilt. The same tactics that had worked for years, but not today. The knocks turned into pounding. Open this door right now. Brian's voice no longer friendly, no longer pretending. This is family business, not a police matter. Yes, it was. The moment they dismissed my boundaries, ignored my requests, and treated my home like their personal resort, it became a legal matter. From the study window, I spotted flashing lights down the hill. Relief crashed through me like a wave. Help was coming. Not because I couldn't handle it, but because I'd finally decided I didn't have to handle it alone. Sirens drew closer. Through the walls, I could hear panic setting in. Jessica's voice turned frantic. What if he's serious? What if he really called the cops? He's bluffing, Brian snapped. He doesn't have the backbone. He still didn't get it. He thought I was the same man he'd been steamrolling for years. But something had changed. The doorbell rang. Not like a guest, but like authority. Strong, firm, unmistakable. Voices scrambled around the house. A few footsteps bolted down the hallway. Someone cursed under their breath. Jessica started crying, real or staged, it didn't matter anymore. I opened the study door and walked out. 2 uniformed officers stood at the entrance, calm and composed. "Are you the homeowner who placed the call?" one asked. "Yes," I said, holding up my deed. "This is my home." They were never invited. I asked them to leave. They refused. Behind me, 13 people stared in frozen disbelief as reality set in. "Understood," the officer nodded. "You have every right to determine who stays in your home. This is trespassing." Brian started to protest. "Wait, this is all a misunderstanding." But it wasn't. This was a reckoning. "You have 15 minutes to gather your belongings and leave the premises," the officer announced. "Anyone who remains will be arrested for trespassing." The vacation was over. The free ride had ended. And for the first time in years, I finally felt like I was standing on solid ground. By the time the last SUV peeled out of my driveway, the sun had begun its slow descent into the Pacific. I locked the front door, not just physically, but emotionally. This was mine again. My villa, my sanctuary, my rules. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Notifications from Facebook, Instagram, text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. At the top of my feed sat a post from Brian. "Heartbroken. We drove 4 hours to visit family and were kicked out like criminals. My late wife Emily would be ashamed of how her father treated us. We just wanted to spend time together. Instead, he called the cops on his own family. Prayers needed." Underneath, a photo of Jessica crying in their car. Makeup streaked, her expression tragic, Oscar-worthy. The caption read, "When family turns on you, it breaks something inside you. We just wanted to share joy, not be humiliated." Within hours, it had over 300 shares. Comments rolled in like a flood of judgment. Unbelievable. He called the police on his own grandkids? Money really changes people. So sad. Emily must be rolling in her grave. The lie had legs. Worse, it had emotion. Brian knew exactly what he was doing. He did not need to tell the whole story, just enough of a version that painted him as the wounded, grieving widower and me as the cold-hearted miser. There were no photos of the 15 people who had stormed into my house. No mention of how they had refused to leave. No hint of the beer bottles, the furniture rearranged, the master suite they tried to steal. Just selective truth, sharpened into a spear of public shame. Jessica went live next. Teary-eyed in a parked car, she whispered to her followers, "We just wanted to visit Dad's new place. He's so successful. We were proud of him. But instead of opening his home, he opened the door to the police. I can't even explain the pain." Tens of thousands of views, hundreds of comments, empathy for her, condemnation for me. A few mutual friends reached out, hesitant, concerned. "Richard, what happened? This doesn't sound like you." One message from Margaret Chen, Emily's closest college friend, hit hardest. "I'm shocked. Brian said you wouldn't even speak to the kids, that you told them they weren't welcome. I'm heartbroken for them, for Emily's memory." I tried to respond. I explained the truth, briefly, factually. They came uninvited, 15 people, took over my house, ignored my requests to leave. I had no choice. Margaret never replied. The public narrative had been set, and in the court of social media, feelings always outweighed facts. I sat in my study, staring at the ocean. It was still beautiful, but it felt distant now, muted by the storm of assumptions and half-truths battering my name online. I wasn't worried about legal consequences. I had done everything by the book, but reputation, that was harder to protect, because Brian was smart. He knew how to spin pain into sympathy, how to wield Emily's memory like a weapon, How to evoke loyalty through curated vulnerability. And I had facts, receipts, bank transfers, silence. For years, I had been the silent provider, the man behind the curtain writing checks and swallowing frustration. Now, I was the villain in a story I never got to tell, but that was about to change. Because if Brian wanted a public war, he'd get one. Only this time, it would be fought with evidence. By the time Brian's post crossed 1,000 shares, I had already started my counterattack. I'm not an influencer. I don't cry on camera or craft heart-tugging captions. But I am something far more dangerous to a manipulator. An engineer with meticulous documentation and a quiet, calculated resolve. 40 years of project planning, budgeting, and systems analysis had given me one gift Brian never counted on: evidence. While he worked the sympathy circuit, I opened my filing cabinet and pulled out a manila folder labeled Family Support. It wasn't a petty file. I hadn't kept these records to someday use them as weapons. I kept them because I had to. Because with Brian, every just this once turned into another financial mess I had to clean up. I laid it all out on my desk. $18,000 for his failed startup, $45,000 for his MBA, $60,000 for the house down payment, $85,000 for Emily's medical bills, $30,000 for their wedding, $20,000 in miscellaneous emergencies. Each transfer had a receipt. Each check had a stub. Each wire had a note in the memo line. There was no gray area, no assumptions, just hard, traceable data. Total, $350. I spent the next few hours compiling a spreadsheet that would make any forensic accountant proud. Chronological entries, payment types, reasons, matching social media posts where Brian claimed financial stress while vacationing in Bali, buying a new car, or gifting Jessica a spontaneous designer bag. His lies were layered like a cake, but I had every ingredient. Next, I called my attorney, Howard Brennan. He'd handled my estate planning after Emily passed, and I trusted him. "Richard," he said after hearing the full story, "you've built one hell of a case. Most people in family disputes have vague memories and shaky numbers. You have a damn archive." "I'm not out for revenge," I told him. "I just want my name back, and maybe some justice." He agreed to file 2 claims: civil lawsuit for restitution, to recover a portion of the $290,000 based on unjust enrichment; defamation claim, for the social media campaign that painted me as an abusive father and cold-hearted recluse. While he began drafting the paperwork, I turned to social media, not to vent, but to post my own version of the story. No theatrics, no dramatics, just facts. There's been a lot of misinformation shared about me recently. I want to clarify a few things with evidence, not emotion. Over 6 years, I provided $290,350 in financial support to my late daughter's husband. I never asked for repayment, but I did expect respect. I attached screenshots of transfers, notes, and even photos of gifts Brian had claimed were from the heart, while funded from my account. Then, I ended with this. This is not about family drama. This is about boundaries, respect, and truth. I've filed a legal case to address this properly. Thank you to those who've supported me quietly while the noise has been loud. It wasn't viral. It didn't get 1,000 likes in an hour, but it reached the people who mattered. Margaret Chen commented first. "I had no idea, Richard. I'm so sorry I judged without asking." Other former colleagues chimed in. Neighbors, family, friends. The narrative had cracked. Brian went radio silent. No more posts. No more prayer requests. Just a growing silence as his fiction began to erode under the weight of receipts and reality. Howard called the next morning. "We'll file Monday, full documentation attached. Court will take this seriously." I nodded, looking out at the Pacific. Brian had tried to drown me in emotion, but I wasn't drowning. I was anchoring myself in something stronger, the truth. Monday morning, I walked into the courthouse not as a man under attack, but as a man with a case. My briefcase was filled with documented truth, my spine straighter than it had felt in years. Brian, on the other hand, looked like a deflated balloon when the court officer served him papers that afternoon. restitution, defamation, a lawsuit backed by itemized transactions and certified financial statements. It was the first time I'd seen him speechless. The hearing came fast. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Martinez, reviewed the evidence. "Mr. Clark, your documentation is unusually thorough for a personal case," she remarked. "Mr. Miller, do you contest the amounts listed?" Brian mumbled something about family gifts, but the screenshots of him promising repayment, coupled with posts claiming poverty while vacationing, killed that defense before it started. His lawyer requested settlement. Terms: $150,000 paid over 3 years. Public retraction of all social media posts. No further contact without legal consent. The judge turned to me. "Mr. Clark, do you accept this resolution?" I glanced at Brian, eyes sunken, arrogance gone. I thought of Emily, her warmth, her belief in kindness. She never asked me to be walked on, only to be fair. "I accept." The court's gavel came down, and with it, so did the curtain on Brian's act. That evening I posted one final message. Justice has been served. I've chosen to move forward in peace. Thank you to everyone who waited for the truth before passing judgment. The flood of apologies came next. Friends, neighbors, even people who had shared Brian's lies. And the final blow? Brian's court-mandated public apology, stripped of flair, posted quietly and without comments allowed. His social influence was gone. Mine was restored. Not through likes or shares, but through dignity, facts, and boundaries. The truth didn't go viral, but it endured. The villa was quiet again. No thumping music, no wet footprints on the marble, no strangers filming in my kitchen or claiming rooms like they were on a reality show. Just the sound of the ocean, the sound I'd worked 40 years to finally hear in peace. I spent the next few days restoring order, not just to my home, but to my life. Furniture returned to its rightful places. Sheets were washed. Jessica's makeup was scrubbed from my marble vanity like it had never been there. Every bottle, every cooler, every piece of chaos was gone. So were the freeloaders. What remained was clarity. I didn't stop being generous, but I started being selective. I set firm boundaries. I told my extended family, kindly but directly, visits are by invitation only, and respect is non-negotiable. And something incredible happened. People respected that. My nephew David called and asked if he could come by next weekend. Just him. "I'd love to see the place," he said, "but only if it's a good time for you." That's all I ever wanted. To be asked, not assumed, not used. The following Saturday we had coffee on the deck as the sun melted into the Pacific. "This place suits you," David said. "It's peaceful. You finally got what you earned." I smiled. Took a while, but yeah, I think I did. And I had. But not just the villa, the sunsets, or the solitude. I'd earned back my self-respect. I'd learned the hardest truth of all, that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, that family loyalty without mutual respect is just another form of manipulation, and that sometimes the most generous thing you can do, for yourself and others, is say no. Richard S. story is a powerful reminder that kindness isn't weakness, and setting boundaries isn't cruelty. For years he gave without question, believing it was the right thing. But real generosity requires limits. By standing up for himself, Richard didn't just reclaim his home, he reclaimed his dignity. If you've ever felt taken advantage of by people who hide behind the word family, let this be your sign. You're allowed to say no. If this story resonated with you, like the video, subscribe for more powerful revenge stories, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here.